Hello everyone, my name is Andre and I'm a social work student who will today explain a bit about how social work practices apply to mental health services and also why its approach makes a unique and essential contribution to the field. Here's a brief overview of my presentation. My main goal here is to explain what it means to be a social worker in the area of mental health and what is the unique approach when dealing with individual groups and communities that present signs of mental distress. This will be done by giving an idea of what characterizes the identity of being a social work working this specifically in this field, and what differentiates them from the other professionals. After that, I'll explain a bit about how social work actually do the job in the field using a multidimensional framework to help us to assess holistically cases such as the one that you'll be using this presentation as an example. Lastly, I will review a bit about what I have learned from this experience that can certainly contribute to improve my practice as a social worker in the future. All right, let's start talking about what it means to be a social worker in mental health context. The first thing to note is that in social work practice, mental distress is ubiquitous. This means that it doesn't matter in what areas you are going to work. You'll find people who will present mental distress in some degree, and that's a fact. So, what is our social work's role when we encounter this type of people or situation in our work? According to the Australian Association of Social Workers, our role is maximizing the well-being of these individuals and also the society around them, while trying to emphasize the principles of social justice, human dignity, and human rights. But how do we achieve this in practice? This is where comes our unique way of approaching mental health services. I have listed here some of the unique ways that social works approach mental health services when you work with people, groups, communities, and organizations alike that clearly differentiates them from the other health professionals. For example, social works is a relationship-based profession, and these relationships are central to the effectiveness of our work. We support people when we properly connect with them, try to listen, discover what's important to their lives. And when we work collaboratively in an empathetic trust way, we can make positive difference in their lives. We also emphasize the person, not the illness, when we work with people with lived experience of mental distress, and values and respect their unique experience and situation. We also take a holistic approach when we try to understand people, and we take into account all the personal, family, social, economic, and environmental factors that can influence their lives. Social works also are concerned with the social well-being. That's a broader that's a broader field. And that's why we study and take into account how social determinants can influence the lives of the individuals, groups, and communities, which takes us direct to our concern of the inequalities and oppression in our society. And also we try to actively seek for social justice in everything we do. And we do that mostly through our anti-oppressive approaches and practices. Lastly, we try to work to positive lens and strengths in our approaches. And we try to focus on what people have in what people have at the best, and not on we try not to focus on their problems or deficits. And all these characteristics together, this forms our identity and our way to work not only in mental health context, but I think the whole practice of social work. To work effectively in mental health related service providing a true holistic perspective, social works must be able to understand how environment, relationships, and any experience impact the development and health well-being of those we work with, especially when they face the effects of divorce in their lives. And that's where comes the harm's multidimensional approach. This approach allows to understand how human development occurs in all its stages, from infant to elderly, across the whole life course of individuals. It also gives us the capacity to recognize how unique are their biopsychosocial and spiritual lives configuration. In this model, each human being has an outward dimension that complement and reciprocally act on each other. The word encompasses the biological, psychological, and spiritual facets of a person, while the outer world embodies all the external environment and the relationships that influence them. All of that is engulfed by the time dimension, which is it captures aspects like our natural aging, our unique life experiences, the historical context we live within, our the cyclical events that occur in our life, and also our perceptions of future. In this slide, we can see a more complete representation of the multidimensional model, and it's possible to see each dimension interact and is positioned in relation to each other. Here is also possible to see how the Bronfenbrenner ecological approach influenced the model by looking the specific terminology showed in this specific representation of a harm's multidimensional approach. Something interesting about this model is that it's really concerned of the impact of the diversity in the lives of people. The source of this diversity can be stress, can be mental illness, can be loss of someone or something important to you, can be also the effects of trauma, for example, in your life. And also, this model also can know and understand how people adapt or not to the presence of this adversity, and how they cope with when bad experience happen to us or to them, and also what are the risk or protective factors that can be many, for example, can be biological, interpersonal, social, even structural. These factors can possibly help us or harm the promotion of the resilience in us, or also harm or promote our thriving, the thriving factors in our life. And that's something very interesting about this model that I really like it. Now, dive into a practical example of how we can use this approach with a real life scenario. I've chosen to highlight Kaylee's journey. She's a young woman from Australia who grappled with an eating disorder for 2 decades before embarking on a road to recovery. I've used her story as a way to we can understand the multidimensional approach. And after delving in her narrative and her history, I've made various observations. If you take a glance in this slide and next one, you'll see my notes and insights. And when I was employing each dimension from our framework to sketch a detailed map of her experience. This helped me to discern what were the elements that may have precipitated and even exacerbate her disorder, and those who may have aided her recovery as well. This comprehensive understanding then allowed me to craft an informed formulation. I will not be able to read the whole content of both slides due to the short of this presentation, but it is worth noting that I tried to capture her experience as Keely understood it, leaving my assumptions away from it. And here is the continuation of the previous slide that I don't have time to read, unfortunately. But it's here just to see how it's applied the multidimensional framework. Just before I give you more information about Keely's case, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture of how we social workers approach assessments. So, what exactly we are looking at when we assess someone? Primarily, we are trying to examine both their problems and strengths as well, and also of the environment. This means that we take into account the family dynamics, community interactions, and even group affiliation. We aren't just looking at the individual's biological or psychological factors. We try to explore also the broader social, cultural, and structural factors that somehow influence in their lives. And how do we do these assessments? Well, our assessment is rooted in the relationships we cultivate. This means that we try to actively listen to them, try to engage in meaningful two-way conversations, and foster an environment of mutual understanding. Not only this, but we try to emphasize the importance of nurturing strengths, try to encourage self-reliance, and promote collaboration. while as well trying to instill a sense of hope in their lives in all this process of the communication, and try to engage in meaningful relationships. Once explained that, and return to our case, after the application of the multidimensional approach and the assessment process, I have got the following formulation. I will not read the whole test due to the time pressure, but as you can see, I try to convey her story with the disorder, trying to show both her problems but also her strengths, along with some external social cultural factors that certainly have had a strong influence in her life. I also tried to summarize her recovery journey process and try to list what were the most important facts and that helped in her taking back in her life and try to live better with the disorder. Now, if you look closer at her case, it's possible to identify several protective factors that helped her in her journey in these 4 years. I have made here a small list that in no way exhaust her these recovery facts, but I put those that seem to be the most important ones in her recovery journey. So, for starters, after a particular challenging crisis, she took a step back and really reflected on the her of her disorder and the situation of her life, and she came to realization that her current path was unsustainable, and she made a conscious and serious decision to reclaim control of her illness and take over. Further, she acknowledged that there was a lot she didn't understand about her condition, and this gap in knowledge propelled her on a quest to gain a deep understanding and find a renewed sense of purpose in her life. Moreover, as we all know, family can be a rock in these situations. For her, especially her partner's unwavering support, become a cornerstone of her recovery. Additionally, the genuine and trustful relationship she built around the healthcare professionals in her treatment made a world of difference in her recovery. So that's why it's so important the relationships for social work as well. It's also possible to see that throughout her journey, Kiri exhibited immense resilience, even when faced with some setbacks, which we could see that she found really frustrating, but she keep her firmly set on her recovery. Lastly, and perhaps one of the most poignant takeaways from her story is the enduring sense of hope she harbored. No matter how dire things seem to be, we can see that she believed in the possibility of change. In deep down, she really believed in that. And by the end of her, this glimmer of hope transformed into a radiant beacon, illuminated a bright future, not just for her, but for all those who surround her as well. Now, reflecting on this case has provided me valuable insights for my future path. While I cannot exhaust everything I learned from it, I can list some of the points that mark more deeply. So the first thing I noticed is that I had no idea in this case of how debilitating each disorder can be and how profound it can be in other people's life. As we can see on Kelly's anti-extreme who took her own life as a consequence of a eating disorder. Another thing that made me reflect on of is how little we know about this kind of disorder and how misguided can our views be about it, and we can see how low awareness our main street give to this kind of disorders. Also, alongside with Kicking Her recovery journey, I learned that recovery is possible even in a long and distressing case as it was of her, and that people like her just need our unwavering support to find positive difference in their life. Also, in her whole story, it's possible to see how crucial the recovery is. How crucial to recovery is the relationship these people have with others, the network of support, and it is only for necessity for us social workers to create trustful relationships to bring difference in the lives we care for. This fact also leads me to the point that the essence to create this profound connection lies in being present, in being attentive, in being deeply empathetic with these people's condition. And Kili, it reminds me that Kili once mentioned that her top advice to anyone in similar condition would be to seek someone trustful and to share their struggle. And that she believed that change was almost impossible alone. It made me to ponder occasions when we as social workers might be the only trusted figure in someone's life. So the ability to genuinely connect, understand becomes paramount. So, and lastly, it's imperative for us to engage in continuous self-reflection. And through my assessment, I realized of the importance of checking our biases and preconceptions in our life to ensure that our primary goal to assist and uplift these people will never compromise by these factors. So we have reached the end of presentation. I hope you liked it and learned something as I did. Thank you for your time and presence and see you next time.